Hello, everyone. Welcome to another session of Human Rights Summer School, organized by Knowledge Teas in collaboration with South Ural University and University of Maribor. Today, we have with us Mr. Victor Nayak. He's an assistant professor, School of Law Justice, Adams University. So you can start with your session.
Thank you very much, Harsha, for the introduction. Well, participants, as I mentioned in the chat box, this is one of the most difficult sessions to attend. Being Sunday and that to lunchtime, I admit it's a very tough call on me asking you to drop all your plans and sit with me through this session. So I'll try to keep it as much as crisp. And I'll try to talk to you about something that is kind of a juncture, as you can see on the slide itself. It is the intersection of corporate law and human rights. I, being a faculty of corporate and allied laws, I find this subject of human rights very fascinating, especially when it comes to corporations. There have been a number of instances when we have found that corporations are at crossroads with human rights issues. And we cannot say what are exactly the scope of those issues, but they are multifarious, multidimensional, and at times we really find that it is very difficult to come to terms when we have to talk about corporations and when we talk about human rights issues. Uh, Corporations have time and again been blamed for blatant violation of human rights. Corporations have been blamed for various kind of tortious uh, issues that have happened with them. And many kinds and many a times it has happened that corporations are found to be guilty, but due to some reason or the other. Sometimes it is a jurisdictional issue, sometimes it might be due to some other issues. So there might be a lot of reasons because of which we cannot always say that the corporations are on the right footing. So this is one particular topic that I thought of sharing with all of you, which has caught up with the new emerging trends of corporate law, and that is called as corporate citizenship. So with reference to this, we will try to understand what is the meaning of this term, because when we talk about citizenship, we know that the concept of citizenship is somewhere or the other associated with a living person. And even though we might have all the theories of corporations, we might have all the other laws and regulations regarding corporations, which establish very firmly the limited liability and the concept of corporate personality, but somewhere or the other, we have to admit a fact that a corporation does not have a soul, neither does it have a brain. So without the two most key elements that are required to be present in an individual, giving citizenship rights to such a person who does not have a brain, who does not have a soul, it's a bit or a touch difficult. And why it becomes even more crucial is because corporations are run by individuals. Corporations and their activities are governed by individuals, and the corporations act according to those instructions. So thereby a person who does not have a control over his will, if given citizenship status, there can be a lot of issues. But anyways, we'll see what the dimensions of this subject are today. And after that, you'll be having a very brief activity that you have to do with reference to this particular session. So without wasting further time, let's delve into the topic. And I would expect that if there are any questions, please don't hesitate to put them in the chat box or keep noting it down. Maybe we can have a few question answer session at the end also. But feel free to interact because this will be something that will be interesting for all of you, I believe. Okay, so now when we look at this particular subject, firstly, the point is what is meant by corporate citizenship. Now, when we have looked at this particular term, what we found is that corporate citizenship, if we try to understand in its nascent stage or like in its rudimentary stage, it was when it was being decided or deliberated that can you give a citizenship status to a body corporate. Now, Indian Supreme Court had very firmly said no. We had seen a number of cases, starting from Charanjit Lal Chaudhary till Bennett Coleman. The plethora of judgments that are there, they clearly say that no, you cannot give citizenship status to corporations. But having said that, this concept has become associated with another concept that is somewhere or the other related to a corporation, that is called as social responsibility. So in the modern day times, when we look at this term corporate citizenship, you'll find that this term is no longer talking about the debates about that can a corporation be given a citizenship status? Can you award citizenship rights to a corporation? That means, will they have the right to vote? Will they have the right to status or nationality? All these debates have taken a sideline. What now has come up is that we have tried to visualize that can we cast the duties upon the corporations in lieu of them enjoying certain benefits from the society. This is the modern approach of corporate citizenship, which we understand. Thereby, what we can find is that corporate citizenship therefore refers to certain activities or set of responsibilities that the organizations might have set so that they can have a positive contribution to a society in general. Now, the statement itself will ring a bell in your ears, I'm sure, because it sounds to be vaguely familiar to a concept that is also known as CSR, or to be precise enough, corporate social responsibility. Many a times people mistake the two terms to be as the same, but I'll tell you very frankly, the two terms are not exactly the same. There are a lot of differences. And in fact, when we compare the two terms, corporate citizenship and the term corporate social responsibility, we'll find that there are some stark and glaring differences between the two concepts. But yes, when we see the evolution of corporate citizenship, somewhere or the other, the uncanny similarity with CSR is found to be embodied in the modern day version of corporate citizenship. Now, when we talk about corporate citizenships, thus what we can understand is it refers to the behavior that gives a positive boost to the company's image, as well as it might be that what kind of responsibilities the corporation is discharging with reference to social or environmental or whatever. So thereby, we can say that it is a kind of a commitment to the ethical behavior by incorporating certain methods with reference to its business strategy, its cultural hegemonies to be reduced, and operational structure to be rationalized. So, in an effort or in a committed approach, this is how corporate citizenship in the modern day stands. Now, with reference to this, there are two particular definitions that I'd like all of your attention to be focused upon. First is the World Economic Forum, while trying to deliberate upon this contentious issues, they had defined corporate citizenship about the contribution a company makes to the society through its core business activities, social investment, and philanthropy programs. See, this philanthropy program is the point where corporate citizenship draws a similarity with CSR. But again, I'm saying it's not the same. Please don't have this notion in mind that they're entirely the same. We will bust that myth also at the end of the presentation. But this is how they have defined it. So they go on to say that the way a company manages its economic, social, and environmental relationships, and the way it engages with the stakeholders, the various stakeholders like the shareholders, employees, customers, they have an impact in the company's long-term success. So if you say, for example, today, there are so many companies in India which are in operation, if I'm talking about India. Similarly, the countries from where you are belonging in your jurisdiction, you might be aware about companies whom you remember for not for their profits, not for their products, but for their social activities and ventures. Like Tata in India has been a talking point or kind of an example setter in this particular fashion. And why Tata has been so? Because what we have seen is Tata, they have evolved the concept of CSR from a time when even CSR was not even in its rudimentary stages. So they had taken up the onus of establishing or discharging those functions at that time. And thereby they have not only built cities and towns, but have also developed the townships in such a way that they are becoming self-independent, they are becoming self-reliant. So when we discharge our responsibility not only towards the society, but also towards the other stakeholders like the employees, the government, and the society at large, then obviously it has a positive impact, which propels that company to a different level. When you study a subject called corporate finance, then we have a certain parameter where we check about the company's goodwill, and that has an asset value. So the company's goodwill, somewhere or the other, is also built by these kind of activities that the companies undertake. Now, this is the one of the definitions given by the World Economic Forum. The other definition that was given by the Forum of Logistics and Transportation, while there was a initiative, a global corporate citizenship initiative was there. So they were trying to streamline this particular concept. So they had come up with a definition which stated that corporate citizenship is the contribution that a company makes to the society through its core business activities. Now, understand this point. They're saying the core business activities, philanthropy programs, and engagement in the public policy, and the way in which the company manages the social, environmental. So it's almost the same as the other one. Only thing is, they have not talked about the impact on the company's long-term access, but almost in a similar manner, the same definition of the World Economic Forum was carried forward. So this has somewhat stuck with the people's mind in the present day. And that is how the companies are nowadays seeing corporate citizens. Now they are no more haggling about give me right to freedom of speech and expression, give me right to equality, because now they know that there are certain basic rights. Like in India, it's already very clear. Similarly, in countries like USA, in UK, there are various kind of rights that have been given to the various entities. And these entities or these rights that they enjoy arise from their various situations. Like if you talk about US, the companies have been given right to freedom of speech and expression, and they have been given a citizenship status by stating that the amendment, the Fourth Amendment of the US Constitution, which talks about the right to freedom of speech and expression, that applies to corporations. The corporations have the right to freedom of speech, and at the time of votes, because in US, which is one of the largest capitalist economies of India, of the world, what we find is, unlike India, they have corporate lobbying. So because corporate lobbying is allowed, so the citizens should be given certain rights to voice their concerns, to voice their issues, and thereby corporations were recognize these particular rights. But India has a more conservative approach. But now these kind of differences are no longer in existence, because now we are trying to define this particular concept in context of something called as CSR. So when we talk about the development of corporate citizenship, we see that there are 5 developmental stages through which it goes. First is the elementary stage, where the organization begins to carry out certain small projects which are in sync with their social responsibilities. This generally starts with the compliance of, for example, for India, it's ISO standards, and the other occupational health safety standards. They are the basic ones, minimum compliances, without which the company's basic existence would be under question, the products would be under threat, and even for that company to survive in the market will become very difficult. Next comes the engagement stage. This is the phase when the company consciously develops various policies whereby the employees, they are made a part of those policies, so that the development of the community and the contribution of these employees in the development of the community can be gauged in a positive fashion. So here the employees are being now, initially at the elementary stage, it was primarily the management who were doing the compliances. Now comes employees or the other stakeholders who are interacting with the society to make it more conscious in the efforts that they are taking to make the social responsibility more meaningful. Third stage, which is the stage where the innovation starts. The innovative stage where the company devises creative means. You might have seen in your, I must say, I'm not sure about the other jurisdictions for that matter, but like, for example, India, what we can see is there are ITC copies, classmate copies. At the back, you will see that they've given that every copy of purchase for that ₹1 will be donated to this particular child education initiative. So what is that? That is the innovation. So you will feel that I'm a part of a great mission. I'm a part of a great literacy mission which the Indian government has undertaken. I'm a part of the literacy mission which is helping maybe some child to earn the right to education, which is a very elementary right, but somehow we are not able to give this elementary right to all the children because of various reasons, and funds is one of the major ones. So there you have this kind of conscience of yours which feels that I don't have to spend millions of rupees, I don't have to contribute thousands of rupees. Even if I purchase a classmate copy, I'm able to contribute. This is the kind of responsibility that is associated with your behavior that the companies try to hit. Your conscience is being attacked. Pardon me for using the word attack, but that is how they do it. That's a marketing strategy that they devise. So that is innovation. There are various other innovations that the companies also do. So we have all the companies devising. So for that, they work closely with the marketing team, the strategists, they develop policies so that their innovation is completely stand out and their products become unique in that particular fashion. So education, environment, we can talk about sanitation. There are many sectors where the companies have operated and they are working still. And day in and day out, the sectors are only becoming more and more and more because there's no limitation to these sectors. it's the whole society which is there upon which you can work. So basically, the innovation can happen in any sector for that matter. Then comes the integrated stage, which is the company has fully blended its activities and the processes so that the social responsibility and activities don't become separate. They become like one single process. So here, till the time assimilation was not happening, the company was maybe trying this and that, and they were trying to integrate. So integration stage is where the final blending of the activities and the processes involved in corporate social responsibility happens till the pinnacle stage. And last is the transforming stage where the organization fully grasps that what exactly the corporate citizenship entails, and accordingly what are the standards they need to take, what are the reviews that they need to do, and how to keep on growing on this particular front. Because if you check about the compliances, we have to submit, all the public limited companies, they have to submit a corporate citizenship report, and if they are not submitting, the directors can be held responsible for that. There are penalties for non-compliance, which makes it even more imperative for the company's directors to ensure that they have a proper strategy and they work towards that particular goal. So apart from compliance, this is a stage where the company finally decides, okay, this is the time when we have to put our foot down, take a conscious decision that have we done it right? Is there any scope for improvement? So that is a transformation stage where the company undergoes some changes. You might be seeing a lot of companies nowadays talking about e-vehicles because we are trying to move from the reduction of fossil fuels to a stage where we will be going to zero use of fossil fuels, because they are not only committing a lot of environmental pollution, but they're also causing huge amount of burn hole in your pockets because of the rising prices of the fuel and the other commodities. So now if you move to EV, you will see the government is now pushing all the companies, all the entities to take up EV. And that's why electronic vehicles have caught up with not only the people at large, but also with the various e-commerce platforms. Many of the e-commerce platforms have started having only e-vehicles as their delivery mechanisms. In many cities, they've only deployed them, no fossil fuel run vehicles. Why? So they can integrate and they can show that how they're contributing in the government initiative of pushing towards a clean and sustainable transport system. So that's what the transformation happens gradually. It does not happen in one day, but it's a slow and steady process that goes on. Next, the important question, though this question should have come earlier, but I believe this question, now that you have a fair bit of an idea that what is corporate citizenship, how it grows. Now the question is, this question has loomed large for a number of years. And the first time when corporate social responsibility became imperative and mandatory for certain corporations in India under the Companies Act 2013, then this was the most popular question, that why CSR? Similarly, why corporate citizenship? What is the basic purpose? So if you can see over here, the triangle, three stages have been highlighted. First is fairness, second one is accountability, and third is transparency. Fairness about what? Fairness about its policy, fairness about its structure, fairness about its business decisions, fairness about the responsibility of the companies. Second stage is accountability. Accountability towards whom? Towards all the stakeholders. And we know that when we study corporate governance, you study a theory called stakeholder theory, whereby all the stakeholders have to be taken into confidence. All the stakeholders have to be brought under the purview of the decision-making process, and then only a valid and a reasonable decision can be said to have occurred. So accountability is a very important fact. And when we look at stakeholders, then this is one of the best modern day concepts of corporate governance that people have said. And the concept of corporate democracy rests upon the stakeholder theory a lot. So accountability somewhere or the other rests with the rise of corporate citizenship recognition policies. And last is transparency. If a company is doing everything right, there's no harm being transparent. The company can easily disclose its policies, state very clear that how safe their products are. You might have seen that nowadays Zomato, if you order something on Zomato, they will say that they are using 100% recycled products, or they are not trying to use any kind of plastic products. They're only using products which are 100% recyclable, so that they are contributing in the less wastage of plastic or less use of plastic in their containers and food delivery materials. So this is what, and this is not only with Zomato, but with other delivery platforms also. They have stopped using kind of plastics which are hazardous. Certain minimum criteria that have been set by the government are the minimum standards that even they also like to follow. Even many corporations have started using paper bags, or for that matter, cloth bags, jute bags, just to increase the awareness. And they also, like, I remember when I was ordering a few items from, no, now they have been named as Blinkit, or rather Swiggy. Yeah, Swiggy it was, I guess, if I remember correctly. So they had mentioned clearly that after you have got this bag, if you wish to keep it, it's fine, it's yours. We are not charging you for that. But if you wish to return it, you might return it to us so that we can use it again. So in that way, what they're trying to do is they're trying to recycle the whole process. And that is something that is good. That's a good initiative, you might say. So that is what a citizen should do. A citizen should know not only his or her rights, but a citizen ought to know his duties. The biggest drawback with any constitution that we find is where the duties are not mandatory. In India, we have Article 51A, but that is not mandatory for people to follow unless until you make a law to follow it. So unfortunately, people tend to forget that what kind of duties that they have. If like even most of your, I'm sure, law students, if I ask you from the Indian Constitution what is Article 51A, like you might, some of you might tell me it's fundamental duties. But if I ask you to tell me some 2 or 3 duties, you might stutter because it's not something that anybody knows. But if I ask you what is Article 14, you'll immediately tell me it is nothing but a right to equality. Why? Because it's a right. We always remember our rights, but we fail to remember our duties. So this is where the corporations ask the question that why should we be the person who should be bearing the brunt of the duties? Why should we be allowed to enjoy the rights just like a common person? So the reason is because the corporations generally, whenever they own their assets, they also have privileges and protections of citizenship. So therefore, they have to take the responsibilities because as compared to a single individual, the amount of resources a corporation is drawing from the society is much more compared to one single individual. So accordingly, when you're drawing something from the society, then you ought to return it back also in the similar fashion, at least if on the same level. And also, it ensures that if a corporation is doing a legitimate business, then obviously the government regulation and societal acceptance is a very normal thing that will happen. But if the corporation is doing something illegitimate, like illegal minings, many a times we find companies involving in environmental law violations, compliance is not being followed. Those of you who are located in Delhi NCR might be knowing about the Supertech Twin Tower case, which was told to be raised on by the Supreme Court of India. But honestly, tell me, wasn't the people aware about the existence of such a sanctuary? Weren't the developers aware about the requirement of such approvals? They were, but somehow they tend to overlook. And they got the approval, and unless until the matter had reached the Supreme Court, maybe they would have, the towers would have existed, and blatant violation of environmental standards would have happened. So that is not something which you should be doing. And most importantly, the concept of corporate finance that is called as maximization of shareholders' wealth or wealth maximization. There are two very important concepts in corporate finance when we study, that is profit maximization and wealth maximization. The wealth maximization of a shareholder can only happen when we follow these 3 stages: fairness, accountability, and transparency. And that is what the corporate citizenship tends to achieve through its policies, through its accountability, through its check and balance, through its ensuring that a company is a responsible entity and not a person who does not care about what is going on in society, because ultimately they don't have a soul to be damned or a brain to conspire. So the corporation can always say, we are not to be blamed. We were being misled by somebody. But no, you have to take the blame because you are getting the benefits. You are getting the chance to exist in society because the law is allowing you. So you have to stay within the parameters. So that is the basic reason. Now, generally, when we go for corporate citizenship, this is basically the strategy that we can adopt. The elements of a strategy should be there. That now this is something which you can, if you are a kind of, in future, if you are planning to join a corporation and maybe you are in the legal team and thereby you find that your corporation or your company or your business entity does not have a corporate citizenship vision, or even they, for example, don't have any kind of policies on that matter. So you can ask your company board and the other management people to make a corporate citizenship charter for that matter. And they can include these following points: a mission and vision statement, top management commitment, what are the ethos and values that the company wishes to achieve, collaboration and coordination across business, and what are the kind of compliances that the companies will do, to ensure that the values and the ethos are properly being followed. And when we say that a corporate citizen is actually something that the people are following, so how do we ensure that? So when we say that this is something which you are believing truly, so being a corporate citizen, a body corporate should believe in the following things. Firstly, meaningful contribution to the customers, not something just for the sake of saying, okay, we have a policy on record and we just do it, but having something that is actually, that is something realizable, having something that is actually plausible to achieve, and most importantly, that will make a difference in the life of the others. Very important point. So providing meaningful contribution to the customers, development of people and community, ensuring that your target audience is well defined, ensuring that you are able to understand that who is the strategy for, and accordingly, does your strategy actually benefit them, or is it a kind of a hogwash? Because many entities or many companies do create such policies, but they're only on paper. You don't find them in actual practices, and that's why those companies, after a certain growth level, they stop. They cannot go to the next level because they are not able to connect to the community, and the community people are not supporting them. So if your rejection is there from the community, you cannot grow. We had seen with Maggie, for that matter. If you remember, Maggie once was banned in India for a certain time because they certain kind of objectionable, like lead and some other kind of objectionable stuff were found in Maggie. But later on, after clearing all the tests and everything, they bounced back. And because their commitment, if you see the advertisements at that time when Maggie was, advertisements were all focusing upon the trust factor. They were all showing that how this brand has kindled the element of faith and love and affection in the minds of the people, the community at large. And accordingly, that kind of an association makes a corporation a good citizen, makes a corporation acceptable citizen for everybody. So that's why creative value in terms of money for the shareholders, so that they can stand to gain. Because obviously, if the company sells more, connect with the community more, the profits will be higher. Consecutively, the shareholders will stand to gain. So it has a direct nexus with that, obviously. Reacting to the changes in terms of innovation and design. As I told you, right now, we are talking about moving away from the fossil fuels. We are talking about moving away, trying to find a clean and sustainable energy for the development and for our vehicles, for our transportation, for our home, for everybody. So why this is there? Because we believe that if this over usage of fossil fuels continue, they will in some manner or the other lead to a detrimental effect on the not only the environment, but on our future generations. They might become extinct. So in that case, to make a sustainable future, we need to show some commitment and show some responsibility, which our forefathers might not have done. So that's why we have to understand that how we can react to the modern day changes, react to the innovations and designs that are happening in society. And lastly, surviving and growing with integrity. Very important. If your policy does not show that you are a person of integrity, you have some moral character, if you have a strong character which stands for a certain cause, then obviously your position in the society will be noted, will be found. Otherwise, if you're like just other persons in the crowd, you'll be just like another XYZ company that exists. There are so many companies we don't know also. But most of them are very profit-making companies. But there are very few profit-making entities which we regularly hear, not only because of the profits or because of the social ventures, because of their other initiatives. And that's how the companies become different from the other entities. Now, when we look at the 4 facets, I would like to say. So I was very fascinated by reading this particular article that was written by Mr. Archie B. Carroll, and that's why I've included this particular slide. So if you wish, you can, it's there on ResearchGate. If you just Google on ResearchGate by Mr. Archie B. Carroll, he has talked about corporate citizenship and he has explained that there are 4 facets of this particular phenomena. One is the economic phase. Second one is a legal phase. Third one, an ethical phase, and the fourth one, a philanthropic phase. So when we associate with CSR, it is only the last phase which is that which gets connected. Every phase has a certain amount of contribution, has an amount of responsibility associated with it, and accordingly, when these phases are properly maintained in the society, they help the companies in a certain way. So if you have a good economic phase, you will be profitable. You can carry your own weight. You can fulfill your own economic responsibilities. If you are having a good legal phase, that means you are a compliant company. you fulfill your legal responsibilities well, you are not a person who is found to be guilty for non-compliances. There are some companies who rarely are found to be non-compliant. Most of the companies are complying with standards because of the huge amount of penalties, but some companies do it out of choice, out of practice also. Then the third one, when we talk about the ethical phase, the behavior, the ethical behavior, engagement, responsibilities, how they're responsive to their employees, to their needs, to their actions. You might be seeing that there are so many companies during the pandemic who had started work from home. They're still continuing with that. And if you say TCS, they have been in the news recently because they will be hiring a lot of people. And not only for that reason, TCS has been found to have incorporated the new labor code. The new labor code, the central government was saying that they will be enforcing from this coming July. It's still at the discussion stage, but that's the intent that they're showing that the new labor laws that we have that already come into being during the time of the pandemic, but they were not enforced at that time period because of restrictions and other regulatory compliance issues. So now the government is trying to enforce it, and already TCS has implemented it. This shows that TCS is a company which is not only a profitable company, but also plans to obey the law and engage in ethical behavior. So they are trying to modify that given the requirement of work from home facility, they will now try to make it a reality that, okay, you can continue to work from home. If you fall in that category, if you will be given an option. So thereby the chance of balancing your life with the new normal that has happened, TCS is making it happen. So this actually shows that how you engage in the ethical behavior. And lastly, giving back through philanthropy. That means about corporate contributions, donations, uh, any kind of social infrastructure activities. So where you are involved in kind of some kind of support to the society in any format, which will be something that is not associated with your profits. But yes, there is always an indirect result, but not an indirect connection. So that is when we talk about the philanthropy. Now, having talked about so much, now I think is the right time to now bust the myth about what is the major difference between CSR and corporate citizenship. I've given a small example. Imagine a market where the cost to produce rose sharply because of a lack of emphasis on sustainability. There was a smaller pool of educated and qualified employees because of poor advancements in education and training, and a reduced consumer base to purchase the products that businesses make due to decreased buying power. What is the consequence of this? If this is a situation where the cost of production is so high because the emphasis on sustainability, so that means, say, for example, today, after say, not today, but after 15 or 20 years, say, for example, diesel vehicles, diesel car or diesel vehicles, if one wishes to produce, it will be almost impossible. Why? Because there will be no takers, firstly, because by that time we are expected to move towards electronic vehicles. Secondly, people having the knowledge and expertise to not only manufacture but also maintain them will become very low, and the cost of production will become very high. So accordingly, that market will be unsustainable. So if companies now utilize corporate citizenship, which has now become to be known as CSR, they will support the society at large. So social responsibility was actually a term that was coined much earlier, other than corporate citizenship. And this has worked more or less on the philanthropic aspect of the corporate citizenship part. According to me, if you ask me, corporate citizenship is a much wider concept in context of defining the distinct duties of the society. Corporate social responsibility, on the other hand, more or less works towards a philanthropy and tries to bifurcate the various ways in which those philanthropies can be carried out. But when we try to further break it down, then we find that the similarities coming up more compared to the differences. But what can be said is that when we look at CSR, the scope of CSR as has been defined already under various laws, it is still easy to associate CSR and find out policies for that. The major hurdle for corporate citizenship is that we don't have any charter, we don't have any law which defines that, okay, these are the standards upon which you need to find out that okay, these are the various things you need to do, these are various duties you have, these are the things you need to carry out. You don't have any such, we don't have Article 51A for the companies. We don't have it. So thereby, it becomes very imperative for us to define certain kind of corporate citizenship charters or duties which is imperative for every company to not only comply, but also carry out so that they become responsible and citizens who can carry out the activities without any kind of trouble. So that is what it is. So I guess all of you have now got some bit of an idea. Before I move on to the activity part, I believe there might be some questions. So if anybody has any questions, please do feel free to ask. Anybody having any kind of questions, any queries, please feel free to ask, because that will be interesting then otherwise. Okay, yeah, Shaksham, please go ahead. I hope you can unmute. Yeah.
Sir, sometimes we can see that you have mentioned about the CSR. In the I'm talking about in reference of a conglomerate, like they are working for a CSR through a charitable trust hospital. But as you have mentioned that the same all thing done by a man, and the mindset of that person is the more important for the same. So somehow during the pandemic or any other thing, when I look for the responses given by that conglomerate, when I can see that as you have mentioned that TCS has given the work from home option for that for their employees. Uh, on the in other response, that conglomerate has given the option for 2 years employees either to res, uh, resign or be settled with the low salaries.
Yeah, correct.
And the low salaries is they have mentioned with morally, like the amount deducted from your salary will be donated to PM Cares Fund or any other thing. And they have collected a huge amount and they have donated the huge amount with the PM Cares Fund with their name. And the same is going as CSR, but this that is the amount or the money of the employees, but they have forcefully or unethically donated. And somehow they are not also not following the guidelines of like semi skilled, or because they are treating people like if I need some more people, there are a huge number of people that who can work for me. So in that response, sometimes I see that the CSR and human rights both are different, because the mindset of people and people in front of you from whom you are expecting the same, it will become very difficult. Like he's a humanitarian person, but somehow he's handling with his benefit too.
Yeah, I also would like to add to this point what you have rightly pointed out, Saksham, and that's actually that's what I said. CSR has become a kind of an imperative requirement for certain companies, but the guidelines that are there regarding CSR activities, they are still very vague at any point, or they have undergone a number of amendments already, but still they are very vague. And the main problem is that it's about the intent. I told you, that the ethical part and the intent, somewhere or the other, if you're not able to connect with that, if you're not able to do that right, then somewhere or the other, there will be a kind of a pitfall for that organization. There are entities, or even like there are, if I can say in that way, there are hardly any corporate business organization which will not have any complaints from the employees. It's not possible. Even like not only corporations, even if you have a maid working for you at your home, that person will also have some or the other complaint, even if you give that person all the luxuries and everything. We all have when we are working in a professional world. But that is the point about creating the balance, which unfortunately TCS and these multinational corporations are not maintaining. And they're misusing the benefits that have been extended to them by democratic nations like India, with reference to not only the PM Cares Fund, there are other places also, like the political contributions, where they're given some various kind of tax exemptions because of that. So those are the, actually, you can say, the dark side of this particular topic, which is actually always projected as a bright and shiny part. So that is the dark side, which always, you can say, remains when we have a eclipse. There's a portion that goes behind. So that is the portion that remains behind, which when people start digging, then that there comes the ugly truth. And that's why there have been a lot of CSR activity reports that have been filed. There have been a lot of CSR related, you can say, investigations that have been done. In fact, relating to CSR, there have been a lot of fraudulent activities that have also been reported by setting up of NGOs, money laundering. A lot of activities have been blamed for that. So I would say that yes, this is actually what the intention of the people are. But the initiative is good. That's what I would like to say. The concept is good, and it depends upon that particular corporation, and more even not only the corporation, the employees and the management of that corporation as to how do they plan to use it. If they actually have a good strategy, if they actually have a good plan, and if they dedicatedly want to actually do something good, they can do it. But obviously, in that case, the share of their pie will become very less. And when you open a company, people generally don't like to have small pies. They want to have a larger chunk of the share. So that is where the mad race for getting the largest chunk makes people do these kind of immoral activities. But I also believe that if we start defining the duties of the companies, just like we have defined the duties of directors, for the first time we have defined the duties of directors. If we start defining the duties of the companies as citizens, then maybe we can see some changes taking place. Till now, it is only at the theoretical stage. We don't have any practical application except for some basic guidelines for CSR, which also does not exactly define as to how the activities need to be monitored or what are the standards or anything. Some kind of basic guidelines are there by the rules and by the company rules, but those are not enough. And we all know how the rules can be bent. So that is the best example that you can find.
Sir, as you have mentioned that each one, it is not easy to make everybody happy. So if we see for the corporate point of view, if the directors or the HR of that corporate is mentioning that point, that it is not easy and good to that we will make everybody happy. If you want to work for us or you need money, then you have to work with us. You have no any other option. And as you have mentioned, the CSR, the other one, the employees retention is the another one which have to be taken in front. Everybody, everything is going good, but what is going bad, we have to look for the same too.
That is why it is the intersection. That's why I told you it's the intersection of the corporate law and human rights, because otherwise it would have been a topic of corporate law only. Here is where the intersection of human rights and corporate law happens. And this is actually a very, very important issue where we find that we have not been able to do much yet. But still, I believe that there are certain companies which are showing intent, though we know that there are always crooked ones amongst the good ones also. But slowly, maybe things would change. And there will be no fine day where there'll be no villains. Ravan has to stay. If we have to have Sri Ram, then we have to have Ravan, because Sri Ram would not have become Sri Ram had Ravan not been there. So somehow we need to have the evil and the good both there. Otherwise, too much of good will only make you too much sugary, which you'll not like. So unfortunately, it's very difficult to eliminate all the evil at one go, but this is a process that can begin. And that's why the deliberation should begin on this point, that can you try to find out a kind of a balance between these two cross-sectional dissects, where human rights and corporations come at loggerheads, and corporations say we have our profits in mind, we have to keep that in mind. Human rights says, what about our rights issues? What about our violations? How do you plan to balance that? So yes, that is a very pertinent point which needs to be looked at. And maybe in the days to come by, we may find certain more kind of norms being laid down by some other entities or organizations, because nobody become a reality for India, but it has become. So maybe someday or the other, we might have a discussion on that point when it has become a reality that yes, it is a kind of an onus where the companies have to do it without any fail.
Sir, are we have any international convention or treaty for the same? Like
for corporate citizenship?
Yeah.
No, there is no such international convention, but there are some kind of initiatives that have been taken place. But there are no such conventions or treaties that, as far as I'm about, means like I'm aware about.
Thank you, sir.
Yeah, I think there is a question in the chat box. Let me just check. I saw it. Yeah. Okay. So Ms. Ghosh, you have asked a question that gender inequality in corporate boards. Yes, it is. I must say it is a big issue. And in fact, it is one of the very key issue that has also come up in the recent times when the compliance time came for the companies to report that whether they have at least one woman director on their corporate boards. So there are certain companies which have been made mandatory that you should have at least one woman director. But I don't really understand why should that become a kind of a mandate? Why should you have a mandate from the law? But now that is a law, so the mandate had to be fulfilled. So there once a kind of, you can say, a study was conducted based upon the responses filed. Many a times it was found that the person from the she gender who was appointed on the corporate board happened to be a relative or some other person related to the other directors, because there was no such law that the woman member cannot be related. So maybe sometime again when we have some other issues on that front, obviously there can be further things on that point. But yes, it is a blatant human rights violation issues, but I don't think this will be the right forum for me to discuss about it, because that is again a huge topic in itself. And this point was first time struck when we had the Companies Act 2013, when they highlighted upon the board diversity issues. And that is why this small section was added, whereby they said that we should have at least one woman on the board of directors. And this number can in further go up also. So this is what we hope. But the only problem is, do we actually feel that that will be the end of the human rights problem? But I don't think so. Because see, the point that people have tried to make is that having a woman on the corporate board will try to help sensitize the other people in the board. Maybe will try to create a kind of a balance on the perspective that the gender will be seeing towards the women issues. But honestly, if one person's presence can make a difference, I also feel that one person's absence would not make a difference, because if we have a board of say 10 directors, one director is only the woman director. How much amount of control do you think that that woman director would have? Because we don't have any special rights for them. We don't have any special privileges for them. There are certain points upon which maybe they can be given some prerogatives like sexual harassment issues and those kind of claims and issues. There can be some kind of alignments. But otherwise, where is the right? They don't have the right. So even if you appoint somebody, so the corporate board's gender equality is always a human rights violation, and having one woman director does not solve the issue, according to me. Either it should be proportionate, or it should be in such a way that based upon some qualifications. But if we based upon qualifications, we know it's again, there is a kind of a corporate hegemony over there, whereby people will believe that many people have said that the woman will not be able to handle so much amount of pressure. But honestly speaking, there have been a lot of studies being done. We can see it in our real life also. If being a man, I can say this, the amount of pressure and the amount of stress that a woman can handle, no man can be able to handle that. So maybe that's a gender disparity that will always remain till the time the company is able to maintain that, because they will prefer to have some kind of dominance. So this is, according to me, a human rights issue, but even more than a human rights issue, it is, according to me, a kind of a psychological issue also for the corporate boards to really look at. That unless and until the mentality of the people changes on this front, I don't think having any law will make some major difference. But yes, this is a beginning in the right step, and that is required to bring about gender parities in the corporate boards. But this disparity will remain until and unless the mindset of us changes. And this is not changing with reference to companies. Though nowadays we are finding a lot of social entrepreneurs where women are being actively allowed to, not only allowed, but they're actively participating in the process. But still achieving that time, or achieving that particular zone, or achieving that maybe level, I think it's still a long way to go. So that is a gender violation, that's a human rights violation issue, which can be mitigated only by change in the mindset and framing policies at the company level, not on a compulsory basis, but by sensitizing them about the need and the benefits of having a gender parity. Unless until that is done, it's not going to happen. So that's why I believe it's more of a psychological thing, which can only change by educating a person in a proper psychological fashion to understand the importance of the decision-making process that the woman does and to be ready to accept it. That is also a big obstacle we have. We sometimes don't like to take orders from women. We have our male ego coming in between. So that is also a big impediment. So that's why I said these are all more or less psychological things that actually come in the scenario. But these can only be changed or modified when we start thinking from a different perspective, when we start accepting what we have been denying for the time till now. So that is what my response would be to this, Ms. Ghosh. I hope I was able to answer your doubt. No response till now.
Yes, sir,
Yeah.
absolutely. I think I have got that point, and the points that you have mentioned, I'll be taking down all those points because it is one thing that we see in Norway, Sweden, and other countries
Yes.
that they have given 40% as a gender quota. But when we talk about India, when we talk about CSR, literatures have suggested that having a women director also focuses on the CSR pertaining issues.
Yeah,
And
they
the
do.
CSR funds are disbursed in a proper manner. But as you said, having one women director will never change the opinion or any kind of thing. So that is also a big problem.
Yeah.
Thank you.
And one more thing I'd like to hide. I have certain reservations about using a quota because I believe the women have already earned their way in the society, and giving them a quota only demeans their status.
Very true, sir.
Because,
But keeping in point the male ego that you have talked
yeah,
about, I think a quota
that
might
is why
help in
we have to accept. That is the harsh
Yes,
reality that we have to accept. We have to swallow the bitter pill, and we have to accept
yes.
this demeaning attribute. But that is what
Yes, sir.
the
Because
tragedy is.
the point that you talked about having family people as directors, that is tokenism, of course.
Yeah, that's
And
tokenism.
yeah, and but the criticism that has been pointed out is more than the positive attitude that some of the families have showed, that females in their family are like quite educated and they can handle the pressure. But I think who are outside the families, I think they will take a better decision. But it is again debatable issue. So yes,
No, they
yes.
will take a better decision because that is the actual purpose. You have to, if say for example, anybody in the on the company's board faces a kind of a sexual harassment complaint, and if that woman director is also belonging to the same family, then do we expect a kind of a fair trial? I doubt it.
Not at all, sir. Not at all. Thank you, sir.
I will have my doubts on that. Yeah. Thank you. Any other person with doubts, any other questions? Nancy, everything fine? Seeming to be a bit drowsy. Anybody, any other doubts? Otherwise, we can just simply jump on to your small assignment that you have to do because summer schools, that means assignments have to be there. So this assignment, I hope you will like it. It is not something about writing any essay or something. It's about doing certain kind of research, which will help you to understand this particular subject in a better way. So let me just share the screen once again to explain to you what exactly your uh, uh, assignment will be. In the meantime, if anybody still has any question, they can feel free to ask. I'll be returning to you all again just now. Just a moment. Okay. I hope you're able to see my screen, the point where we stopped. Now I come to the activity. Okay. Now, as an activity, what you have to do is you have to identify 4 companies who report their corporate citizenship activities. 4 companies can be any 4. They can be Indian companies, they can be MNCs as like presence in multiple jurisdictions. It can happen. It can be even only international companies also, no Indian presence. But you have to identify 4 companies who report their corporate citizenship activities. You have to visit their website, get the requisite details, like what kind of activities they do, and prepare a summary of that by just going through those reports. So 4 companies, websites you need to visit, download their reports, go through it and prepare a summary. One report will be required after going through 4 reports. And as per your choice, you have to identify out of these 3 companies who have fulfilled the corporate citizenship responsibilities the best. Like say, for example, if you take Infosys, if you take IBM, if you take Deloitte, and if you take TCS, I'm just saying hypothetically, if you take these 4 companies. and you find that all 4 companies are doing equally good, but supposedly according to you, you feel IBM has done the best. So why? What was the best standout feature in the IBM's corporate citizenship initiative, which makes you think that they have done a better job compared to the other 3? So that is what you can give in your report. And finally, that the compliance part, it comes. So you have to upload the summary of the report on this particular Google form. And this Google form link I'll be sharing on your chat, in your chat box also, so that in case if you have any difficulty in accessing it, you can find it from here. So I'm just sharing the Google form link on your chat box. And if you have any WhatsApp group, then I would request the organizers to, if they can share this particular link on that particular platform. And the PPT also I'll be sharing with the organizers so they can share it with you. So if you have any, if you want to go through it in further detail, then
Sure.
Okay. So Harsha, I'll be, I'll be sending it to you. You can forward it to them. Then in that case. Any doubts regarding the activity?
Sure, sir.
Any doubts regarding the activity, anybody? And please don't bluff, because if when you fill up the Google form, you'll find out there's an option to catch your bluff. Like if you just open one company and based upon that, you hypothetically say, I visited 4 companies, that will not work, because in the form, you'll have to upload the corporate citizenship reports of all the 4 companies also, the reports that you are reviewing. So you cannot actually bluff. I don't mean to undermine your integrity, but this is happen to be a teacher's instinct. A teacher will always remain a teacher and will always be suspicious of his or her students. Though all the students are really equally, I would say, very much meritorious and hardworking, but this is just a kind of an official disclaimer. So don't take it otherwise. So any questions regarding the activity? So deadline for submission would be like any by today itself, I guess. It should be by today. EOD. Because I have not been given any specific instruction for the deadline, but maybe at the end of the summer school, all your activities will be reviewed. And this will be on record as to what kind of activity was awarded from this particular session. So if that is missing, so that is something that the organizers would be highlighting about. But I believe you should do it by end of day. Your Sunday is pretty much wasted, I can tell you, assure you that. Like we have taken the full responsibility of killing one of your Sundays. I know, but still you will like this, the kind of knowledge it will gain, because that will give you a different perspective of certain topics and certain concepts. And that will help you to think in a different perspective in the near future, in the days to come by. That is a positive side. Let me give you the moral boost so that you don't feel completely demoralized. So I think that will be all. I have taken more than 1 hour.
Thank you so much, sir. I hope the participants don't have any questions. And if they do in future, please feel free to drop the questions in the WhatsApp group and we'll try to resolve it. Also, the PPT and the link will be shared soon after this meeting in the group itself. So thank you so much, sir. It was an insightful session and thank you so much to all the participants as well. Also, we have another session at 5 p.m. So see you all there.